朋友们，大家好。近日，美国前总统克林顿接受媒体的采访，谈到了俄罗斯和中国，以及他眼中的两国现任及过去的领导人。克林顿是1993年到2001年担任美国总统，他上任的时候，俄罗斯总统是叶利钦。叶利钦1991年开始担任俄罗斯总统，1999年的12月31日，他在新年致辞中宣布辞职，把总统职权交给了当时的总理普京。普京由此成为代总统，直至第二年，也就是2000年的总统大选中，普京才正式当选。所以克林顿对俄主要是和叶利钦打交道，和普京打交道时间很短。克林顿和叶利钦的关系既有国家利益上的竞争，也包含个人层面的友好互动。当时正是冷战结束后的过渡期，叶利钦一心想把俄罗斯从苏联的阴影中带向市场经济，而美国赢了冷战后并没有消停。北约东扩计划就是克林顿在1994年正式提出的。对于北约东扩，包括后来的科索沃战争，叶利钦都是强烈反对，但基本上也属于反对无效。因为克林顿当时的美国正是龙精虎猛的年代，苏联崩了，冷战赢了，中国还没起来，美国那个时候引领着全球互联网革命，顺风顺水。经济增速，克林顿8年总统有5年 GDP 增长超过 4%。你别小看这 4%， 因为美国基数大，美国当时的 GDP 是7万亿到8万亿美元，中国才多少？7000亿到8000亿，只有美国的1/10。美国这几十年就是克林顿那个8年经济增长最快，所以当时的美国在全球可以说是说一不二，俄罗斯是求着美国的。你要说两人有没有私人友谊呢？多少还是会有，至少克林顿志得意满，胜券在握，和叶利钦打交道时心情是愉快放松的，比和普京打交道心情要好多了。
You mentioned amongst one of the three things Putin. And of course, Putin came into office right towards the end of your presidency, but you met him, right? You met him when he was you were president, he was president. Yeah. Give us a sense of this man. What's your sense of his character? What's your sense of what he's going to do next? And how important is Ukraine in all of this?
Well, briefly, we worked together for 10 months. We had a good relationship. I tried not to fight with him in public. I tried to work things out because I knew that Yeltsin got out because he wanted to be succeeded by someone that he thought had more energy and more physical strength because he was fading pretty badly. And who thought he would protect his family from the rough politics of, Russia internally. I understood all that. But I also could see that Putin, thought Yeltsin had worked too closely with the West and that they needed to take a harder line. And I think he thought that because he thought it, but I also think he believed that Russia needed to be a bigger player on the world stage. And to do that, they'd have to be tougher and a little more ruthless. And I remember when I saw Yeltsin not long before he died, I went down to his place in the country and we had a long visit, and I could tell he was beginning to worry because Yeltsin did not like communism and basically did not like authoritarianism. So he wanted Putin to be a strong leader, but he got a little more than he asked for. And it was all perfectly understandable. But still, Putin was, performed quite well in his first term. And then he switched out, you'll remember, and became prime minister. And Mr. Medvedev became president. And then they switched back. I always had a really good relationship with Putin because I respected his intelligence. He's really smart. And I respected the fact that if you were respectful with him, he would tell you what he was going to do. I mean, my last meeting with him was a long time ago. Official meeting was 2010. We only see each other at funerals now. But I met with him in 2010. And I was talking to him about Ukraine. He said, I know what you're going to say. I know you made a deal with Boris Nikolaevich to protect the territorial integrity of Ukraine in return for Ukraine giving up their nuclear weapons and putting them under supervision of the international authority, but within Russia. But he said, let me remind you, he never got the Duma to ratify that agreement. So it does not have a force of treaty. And I do not agree with it. And I will not observe it. I mean, basically said in 2010, 4 full years before he took Crimea, that he was coming after Ukraine. And I dutifully reported it to the government and went on with my business. But that's where we are. He's a formidable person, but as you see, there are limits to what he can do. His obsession with Ukraine didn't leave him many cards to play with this surprising development in Syria. And he'd always been active there, and he wanted to be. So that's kind of where I think we are.
I can remember seeing you with Boris Yeltsin. I think it was the G8 in Birmingham. You had more than a kind of sort of political relationship, I sensed there. There was something kind of quite deep and personal going on. Do you think he'd be surprised at the path that Putin has taken Russia on?
I think he would be disappointed that we're all estranged from each other in the way we are. Whether he'd be surprised, I'm not sure. But Yeltsin was no dummy, but he did not. He wanted Russia to be stronger than he thought they were after his health began to fail. But he did not like authoritarianism, and he was not afraid of the people. He was not afraid to face the electorate in an honest election. He was a fascinating man. And at the time, and better, I think, than he got credit for.
说到中国，主持人问克林顿，当年他同意并推动中国加入 WTO， 在看到当今中美激烈竞争的局面时，是什么心情？克林顿对这个问题稍微有点敏感，毕竟这是个从当时到现在一直都存在争议的话题。美国国内一直有批评的声音，说克林顿政府做错了，不应该同意中国加入 WTO， 让中国经济得以迅速腾飞，成为世界第2大经济体，等于是给美国培养出了一个竞争对手。现在普遍认为，本世纪初加入 WTO 是中国现代化进程中国家命运的转折点。克林顿表示他并不后悔，因为美国同样在这个过程中获得了巨大的利益，但他也表示后来事情的发展有些超出了他的预期，以至于形成现在这种局面。
Mr. President, you also were very, very instrumental in the movement to bring China into the World Trade Organization. You're right there at the moment where China kind of explodes on its way to becoming the second largest economy in the world. Tell us a little bit about your sense of China then, what China became, and how people should think about China going forward.
Well, if you want to say that I did something wrong, you'd be on stronger grounds there than on anything with regard to Putin and Russia. I liked Jiang Zemin very much. I thought he was an excellent leader. I thought he and Zhu Rongji, his premier, would basically honor their commitments. And bringing them into the family of trading nations. And I thought it would, over the, not just long term, over the medium term, help us to have a fairer trade relationship with China than if we did nothing. Because keep in mind, that particularly after I left office, when the Republicans won again, they went back to trickle-down economics. So they were spending all this money on tax cuts. Our deficits were great. We had to borrow a lot of money every year. We were borrowing a lot of it from China. And it's hard to pick a fight with your banker every day. So I was worried about it. But I believed if we wrote the agreements properly, it would do more good than harm. And as it's played out, we had a hard time enforcing the agreements we made. And you have to be, I was more than happy to enforce them and bring a lot of trade actions. But still, if a country is as big and strong as China, it's hard to have enough enforcement to overcome the benefits of going around the agreement. And what I did not foresee was the same thing happening in China that happened in Russia in a way. When President Xi came in, he made it pretty clear that he was going to try to stay forever. We're not going to have any of this two-term business. Get rid of that. And I think he was highly intelligent and strong-willed, but he was always, threatening America if we didn't do this, that, or the other thing. And I just think that's one where we took a chance and we hoped we would stay on the path. And China basically said, we're big, we're strong, and we're going to do this our way. We're big enough so that we don't have to honor the commitments we made. And I think it was a contributing factor to the disorientation in the world. I'm still not sure we didn't have to try, because we need to work with China. We need to work with them on climate change matters. We need to work with them on North Korea and other nuclear and militarily related matters. We need to try to persuade them not to go any further with Taiwan and in the South China Sea and with the Philippines. So I'm glad I worked as hard as I did to try to build a constructive relationship. But you could certainly look at subsequent developments and say, well, I've made a mistake. I don't think I did, but it's a closer question given how it's all played out.